So quite recently, I developed an awareness of sorts about clothing and how I dress, something I never really cared that much about before. Now let me tell you something. I used to dress really badly. Actually, scratch the used to part because I'm pretty sure a couple of years from now in the future, I'll look back at pictures of myself right now and wonder why I'd ever thought I'd improved. But anyway, that's besides the point. What I'm trying to say is, alongside this awareness of clothing came the realization that, hey, home shopping is actually really fun. So over the past few months, I've unashamedly spent countless hours scrolling through home shopping websites and internet advertisements for clothes and makeup that I'll never be able to afford, and I've noticed a pattern. The fact of the matter is, we live in a culture where sex sells. It's a marketing strategy. The female body just happens to be a major selling point, an eye-catcher for the audience that is our society. People respond to this culture by taking advantage of it and creating advertisements where females are reduced to just a few body parts. This is the pattern. We place these naked or near-naked females in advertisements where they become objects or parts of objects. We attempt to place these women in all ads, even though most of the time what they're advertising doesn't really make sense to advertise with a female body. This is called objectification. Now, to give you a brief explanation, objectification is the act of seeing or treating a someone, usually a woman, as a something, an object. The thing about objectification is that it happens to females most of the times, and this dehumanizes our whole gender. I'm not saying that males aren't objectified in the media, but the proportion of females that are represented in this manner is way higher than that of males. I'm pretty sure that at this point some of you are wondering why this is relevant, why I have to care. But the problem about objectification is when someone is dehumanized to the point where they are literally an object, it becomes okay to hurt them. From a wider viewpoint, we see that this creates a society where it's okay to violate women, where it's okay to harass women, and worst of all, okay to rape them. Now, I have a number of friends with curvier figures, and any one of them will tell you that they've been catcalled with terms like nice boobs while walking down the street. One of my friends responded once by shooting the man who had commented on her figure with the finger, and he responded with, learn to take a compliment. Firstly, I'm really confused about where people like this learn to give compliments, and secondly, this is what I mean when I say that a female being reduced to a few body parts in the media means that they are reduced to a few body parts in real life as well. As a 15-year-old female, the fact that my entire gender is being reduced to a few body parts everywhere around me, it angers me. Young girls around the world begin to think of themselves as things that exist just for the sexual pleasure of males, and they begin to think this at such a young age. We see 12-year-olds racing to move from to real bra so that they can have the sexual appeal that they aren't even properly educated on. And it's disgusting that society makes them think this way. Now, this phenomenon in which females are portrayed or represented differently or unequally to males doesn't only occur in ads, it occurs in different types of media as well. To start this discussion up, we're going to try the Bechdel Test. I want you all to think about the last movie you've watched. Tell me, for how many of you was there a scene in this film where two female characters got together and discussed something that wasn't a male? For me personally, the last film that I watched was About Time. It's a beautifully written film and it's one of my favorites, but I can't say that there's a scene in this film in which this happens. When this test was first created, only around half of the 2,500 movies that were examined passed it. It's actually strange to think how little films can actually pass this test. Now for another statistic that will probably shock you. The ratio for male actors to female actors in a film is 3 to 1. That means for every female actor in a film, there are 3 male actors. A good example of this, I think, is The Avengers. The Avengers is no doubt an amazing film, and it's a blockbuster hit. It probably broke quite a few box office facts or whatever. But how many females are there actually in this film? Natasha Romanoff is one, Agent Hill is another, and then we've got none. Considering the fact that females make up about 50% of the world population, this doesn't seem quite fair. Continuing on from that, most of the time, female characters lack the personality that is written into male characters. Most often in movies, females will become satellite love interests or characters that exist to be defined by a romance. An example of this is the all-time popular Bella Swan. Now, I'm not criticizing Kristen Stewart's portrayal of her or the writer of Twilight, but Bella Swan is, in my opinion, one of the worst female characters to have ever been written. Her storyline isn't defined by anything that isn't a male in her life. In New Moon, when Edward leaves her, she literally sinks into a deep depression and is not revived back to her usual self until Jacob, another male, starts paying attention to her. To my greatest embarrassment, I used to be a Twilight fan, and all I can think now is how bad of a female role model she is. On the other hand, in an attempt to get rid of this issue, this media has spawned a race of superhuman, perfect, strong female characters. These characters are defined by their physical strength and their ability to, well, quite frankly, kick ass. Don't get me wrong, I mean, I love a good Buffy or Natasha Romanoff, but by doing this, we're trapping ourselves into another box. And in this box, the only acceptable female character is a strong one that doesn't need a man. If this happens, it becomes, what? That female character wants to be with a male? Unacceptable. Like all of us haven't gone a bit crazy over a crush at some point? The only problem with a female character that pines over a male is when she exists just for the point of the male. So I present a quick compare and contrast. You guys have all watched the Transformers, right? We're going to take Megan Fox's character in it, a girl called Michaela, and compare her to Hermione Granger from Harry Potter. Michaela is basically a classic archetype love interest. She's a very sexually attractive female who is filmed making enticing positions from a male gaze for basically the whole duration of the film. We observe nearly no character development from her, besides when she enters a relationship with the main character, Sam, a male, and this relationship comes to define her and her life experiences. Hermione, on the other hand, starts off as a shy, bookworm girl in a new environment who blossoms into a courageous young woman. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a character that has either of these traits, but her development from one to another is stunning. We observe in the 6th movie she begins to fancy Ron in a way that's more than a friend, but the thing is, she never was and she never became a character that existed just for a male. Maybe I'm a bit biased because I grew up with her as a character and was able to relate to her so much, but she's a great role model for female characters. In my opinion, we should be writing way more Hermione Grangers into all types of media. I'm not saying that everyone needs to be able to kick ass and kill Voldemort, but as mentioned before, Hermione was a character with her own story. She didn't just exist for Harry and Ron. We should be writing a spectrum of interesting women, each with diverse, different, and complete personalities. Series like Harry Potter and Game of Thrones, where females are complex and intricate characters with their own personalities, should be the ones that we strive to be like. I'm not going to bash The Lord of the Rings because it's a great trilogy, but did anyone notice that there's about 3 notable female characters in the whole series? I mean, there's probably more non-human main characters than that. The thing is, female characters shouldn't be 2D love interests, but they also shouldn't be killing machines. A female character isn't strong because of her physical strength. She's strong because she's well written. The main fact that writers seem to miss for some reason is that females are humans too, and they need to be written with more than one personality trait. A female character can never be a poorly written one unless she's flat. I've come across 2 quotes that pretty much sum up my thoughts on this topic. One from a freelance writer called Laurie Summers, and from Josh Whedon, a self-professed feminist writer. I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right. The Laurie Summers quote goes, "Screw writing strong woman, write interesting woman. Write well-rounded woman, write complicated woman. Write a woman who kicks ass and write a woman who cowers in the corner. Write a woman who's desperate for a husband, write a woman who doesn't need a man. Write women who cry, women who rant, women who are shy, women who don't take no shit, women who need validation, and women who don't care what anybody thinks. They are all okay, and all of these things could exist in the same woman. Women shouldn't be valued because we are strong or kick ass, but because we are people. So don't focus on writing characters who are strong. Write characters who are people." End quote. I honestly couldn't have said it better. Women are people too, and you're supposed to write them as such. On to the latter quote, and this is from an interview where Joss is asked about how he writes female characters. He responds with, "When people say to me, 'Why are you so good at writing women?' I said, 'Why isn't everybody?' Obviously there are differences between men and women. That's what makes it fun. But we're all people. There's a lot of good writers who are very humanist, but still manage to kind of skip 55% of the entire race. I just don't get that. Not to be able to write an entire gender, to me, the question isn't how do you do it, it's how could you avoid doing it. I've watched quite a lot of interviews with writers like Joss Whedon or George R.R. Martin, who are renowned for their strongly written and well-rounded female characters. For those of you who don't know, George R.R. Martin wrote Game of Thrones, and yes, that means he wrote Daenerys. In one of his interviews, he's asked about his so-called interesting aspect of these books, how he writes very different female characters. And he responds with, much like Joss, "You know, I've always considered females to be people." The fact that females are human seems like such an obvious one, yet society always seems to feel the need to ask about how to write them properly. And that just goes to show how much we need to write more of them. So I guess what I was trying to get at was, there are a lot of things that are being done with the representation of, a lot of things that are being done wrong in the representation of women in the media. And it bothers me because media is such a huge part of our life, it affects all our thoughts and opinions. It's essentially a reflection of how we are taught to perceive ourselves and the people around us. Messages about how we as society are expected to act and look are transmitted using it, and all of us are surrounded by it. Young girls all over the world are sent messages every day by the sexualized ads, the lack of empowering women, and so on and so forth. And these are not the messages we should be receiving. However, the thing about media is it both reflects our society while shaping it at the same time. And so I end my speech today by challenging the audience. We, the audience, the speakers, the people who are involved with TEDxYouth, are the next generation of content creators. I am here to challenge us all to make it so that media no longer represents such an inequality and misrepresentation of women. I mean, look around. It's 2014, and we still live in a world where writers get questions about how to write female characters. Social change doesn't occur overnight, but it's not the easiest thing to achieve. But the benefits of it works for the bettering of our community. The civil rights movements of the 1960s, they're by no means easy, and they seemed impossible at times due to the tremendous backlash that they received, but the achievements that they made were ones that bettered the next generation. In conclusion, as a 15-year-old female, as an up-and-coming woman, and as most importantly, a human, I believe that it is our responsibility to give this next generation to ensure that our children can live in a world where both females and males are given equal and proper representation in the media. Thank you.